Hi, and welcome to this session on revision tips from the Academic Skills Team at UWS. My name is Linda Riches, and I'm one of the Academic Skills Advisors at the university. In this short video, I'm going to discuss revision, how to get prepared, some techniques that might help, and where you can get extra support. And before we start, I'll just mention that the slides on the video have subsections at the left-hand side so that you can easily find a particular section if you need to go back and watch it again. Everyone has their own preferred way of revising for exams or tests, but whatever way you decide to revise, do make sure that you plan ahead. Look at the available time between the beginning of your revision and the date of your exams and try and allocate specific time periods to specific subjects. It's a good idea to prioritise those subjects you feel less confident about. Also think about where you're going to revise. So have you got a place where you can work without being disturbed too much, or where you can leave notes lying around? The next step is to get yourself some planning tools. So think about your favourite ways to keep track of your work. So this could be using a paper planner or a paper diary. It could be using a calendar, and that could be an online calendar. You could use an app on your phone. You could use a wall chart, a dry whiteboard, or even just some paper. Use that planning tool to come up with a study plan so that you know what time you're going to spend on a topic and when you can do it. And remember, you're also going to have other time commitments. So whilst you do need to prioritise your revision, you will have other things to do as well. So you might want to have a look at our video on time management for some advice on how to organise your time. Motivation can be difficult when you're revising, and sometimes you do have to trick yourself into being motivated for study. However, it is true that if you just try and do something every day, you will develop a study habit. And there are different techniques that you can try. So for example, you could chunk your work, which just basically means splitting your sessions up into short chunks and using that to keep yourself focused. You could use the Pomodoro technique, so that's represented there by the tomato. The idea of that technique is that you study for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. And you can download various apps that can help you to do this. And the idea being that we mostly can focus for about 20-25 minutes and then we become a bit distracted. So the idea is you build in that break and then you come back to study, and you can either continue what you were studying or pick a new topic. There are also other things that you can use that can help with motivation, such as gamification or rewards and productivity apps. So for example, Forest, which is pictured in the middle there, is an app which works on your phone, and you create a forest, but if you pick up your phone during the time you're supposed to be working, it will kill a tree in the forest. So you might find that that appeals to you. You can also use apps like Todoist, which are productivity apps, which give you sort of to-do lists and set goals. Or you can just use old-fashioned rewards like a piece of cake or going for a walk or a bit of time off. So these are different suggestions that can kind of just keep you on track. You then want to make sure that you are ready for revision. So gather together past papers, any specimen answers, handbooks, textbooks, any notes that you've got. So if there are past papers for your subjects, the questions won't be duplicated on the day, but you should see some patterns. And some subjects may provide specimen exam answers, which can help you understand what's expected. Practice answering past papers if you can. First with the notes in front of you, and then try it without the notes. And as you get closer to the exam day, time yourself so you've got a better idea of how you work within a time limit. Remember, you're not going to be able to study everything, so you're going to have to be selective. So you have to choose which topics to focus on. So think about what's important and what might come up in the exam. Use past papers and your course syllabus to help you decide which topics are important. And also try and spend some time on those areas that you're a bit weaker on, because those are the areas you're going to be less confident about on the day. Passive learning is where you just read notes over and over, and that's usually not very effective for most students. A better way of revising is to use some active learning techniques so that you really need to think actively about ideas if you're going to remember them. So try to think, understand, and make links between areas you're revising. And what I'll do here is outline some ideas which might help make revision a bit more interesting and hopefully more effective. So for example, you can contract your notes. So you can take your existing notes, you can contract them into bullet points, and then you can try expanding them again to write out detailed notes. You can also do that kind of thing with a mind map, where you create a mind map, which is just a visual way of learning, where you put a central idea in the middle of the page and you have different key ideas branched out from that. And if you try and recreate that mind map, that will tell you the areas that you've remembered, and the bits that you've missed out are probably the areas that you need to look at a bit more closely. You can do other things to help you learn actively, like scattering your materials about, so scattering your notes about, putting them in different places so that you see them regularly. So you could stick them to the wall or stick them on a door, or you could even put notes on the fridge so that every time you go to the fridge, you might see that reminder of something that you're maybe finding difficult to remember. As I mentioned earlier, mind maps are a good technique because they're quite visual, and a lot of students quite like that way of learning. You could also use things like flashcards, where you write some brief notes and pick those at random to sort of test yourself. You could even use cartoons, or you could use rhymes. So a lot of students quite like mnemonics, which are quite good ways of remembering key ideas or remembering formulas, for example. And you can make those up. So an example might be, if you needed to remember how to spell the word friend, if you remembered Fred rushed in eating 9 donuts, the first letter of each word helps you spell out friend. So those are quite effective techniques that you can use, and it can make your learning a bit more fun. Another thing that you could do is think about having a small study group where you teach or discuss topics. So you could teach someone or they could teach you. The difficulty with a study group is staying focused. So make sure if you're going to do that you set some quite clear time parameters and are quite focused on what you're going to look at. Otherwise, you'll just end up spending your time chatting. And finally, do make sure that you take breaks from studying. It's really important to make sure that you have that break away from your desk, and it's not healthy to spend all your time studying. So have a break, go for a walk, reward yourself for completing a task or a set aspect of study. And if you've got a day when nothing is going right, then try not to worry too much about it. Just remember that the next day you can start again. Hopefully this video has helped you to start thinking about revision techniques. Try some combinations to see what works best for you. And you may also want to take a look at our video on exam tips, which has some advice on how to prepare for exam day itself. Remember that academic skills advisors are available to support you with one-to-one appointments. We've also got small group appointments. If a few of you wanted to come and chat about revision, that's fine. If you have a listen to our podcast, you'll find there's lots of interesting information there about academic skills, where we give lots of hints and tips. And finally, don't forget to have a look at our careers and skills web pages, where there's lots of advice there that you can read, watch and listen to on academic skills. So I hope that's been helpful, and thanks for listening.